אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה. לא במבצע, לא בסבבים, במלחמה.
Israelis woke up today to find their worst nightmares had come true in the form of a massive surprise attack by Palestinian militants.
About 6:30 a.m. on October 7th, a surprise attack by a Palestinian group of militants, the Hamas, made their unexpected attack on Israel. This attack is now considered the deadliest attack in Israel in decades. According to the report, their estimated 250 people were killed and 1,500 wounded. And right after that, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared that this is now a war.
אנחנו במלחמה. לא במבצע, לא בסבבים, במלחמה.
So now, the Palestinian militants, Hamas and Israelis will be having a bloody war, which makes you wonder why and when these people have a strong conflict that needs to have a war. War is not the solution we want when two nations are in conflict, because civilians are always the victims. But what just happened now in Israel and the Gaza Strip is what makes war inevitable. But before we talk about what will happen next, let's go back in time to learn the origin of these never-ending conflicts. To comprehend the origins of the Hamas-Israel conflict, we need to trace back to the late 19th century and the rise of Zionism. The Zionist movement sought to establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine, which was under Ottoman rule at the time. It actually complicated cases between these two nations, but to give you a brief and clear explanation, I want you to understand that Israel and Palestine have different ideologies in the first place. Zionism is Israel's national ideology, and Zionists believe Judaism is a nationality as well as a religion, and that Jews deserve their own state in their ancestral homeland, Israel, in the same way the French people deserve France, or the Chinese people should have China. During the 19th century, they were trying to establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine, but the Arabs and Palestinians obviously showed their opposition to this movement. Thus, the conflict between them ignited. The Balfour Declaration in 1917 and subsequent British Mandate led to increased Jewish immigration, triggering tensions between Jews and Palestinians, both Arab Muslims and Christians. Hamas emerged in 1987 as an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood. Hamas, an acronym for Harakat al-Muqawama al-Islamiyya, Islamic resistance movement, aimed to combat Israeli occupation and assert Palestinian self-determination. Hamas' goal is to destroy the Israel state through jihad, or the Islamic holy war, because they believe that the ideologies that they are fighting for are from Allah. Thus, they are driven to go to war because of this belief. Since its founding, Hamas has declared that Israel has no right to exist, that there are no Israeli civilians, and that every Israeli citizen is a soldier of the state, and thus a legitimate target.
Hamas will understand that by attacking us, they've made a mistake of historic proportions. We will exact a price that will be remembered by them and Israel's other enemies for decades to come.
You heard it. The Prime Minister of Israel is ready to retaliate after the Hamas surprise attack. With that, expect more counts of death and destruction for both sides. As a matter of fact, as we are making this video, the death counts keep rising. On this day, October 11th, the latest update on their conflicts is really horrifying. The death count increases, and more civilians are trapped amidst this war. More than 1,000 Israelis, including foreign nationals, were killed, and at least 2,806 people were injured, according to the Ministry of Health. The Ministry of Health in Gaza said at least 900 Palestinians have been killed, and 4,250 injured during the retaliation of the Israeli army in the Gaza Strip, and 200 of those dead bodies are children, and 200 are women. And the death count on both sides will keep rising as the war continues. How deep are their conflicts? Why did it need to end up being a bloody war? As mentioned, they have different ideologies to begin with, and that starts to have many conflicts as time passes, like having territorial conflicts. In 1967, Israel took control of the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem, territories that are central to any future Palestinian state. Israel's occupation of these territories leads to further conflicts. For many years, Hamas and Israel are having a cycle of violence. Both sides are actively showing violence against each other, which leads to what we are witnessing now, their current war. Honestly, all the conflicts we mentioned are just the tip of the iceberg. There were a lot of bad things that happened between these two nations that accumulated over time, resulting in never-ending conflicts. But the roots? Their ideologies. There are always two sides to a coin, and we can't always look at one side without looking at the other side. The attack made by the Hamas in Israel was unacceptable, and they should be punished for their actions. But again, a coin has always had two sides. Both sides should take accountability for the war that is happening between them. Israel is not innocent, nor are the Hamas, but hopefully one day they will find a way to end their long-lasting conflicts. Because at the end of the day, the citizens are always the ones who will suffer the consequences. I know it is not easy as the conflicts are already so huge to even bury along with time and so deep to even forget. But if both nations decided to prioritize their citizens and only focus on making a better place for their people, perhaps war can be avoided. Israel and Palestine are two nations that are only fighting for what they think is right, but as a person watching far away from them, I can't totally grasp what they are really thinking. But one thing is for sure, they both want peace for their homeland. For sure, people all over the world are wondering, who's at fault? Which country should we support? Well, we must support the citizens, the innocent people on both sides who, for sure, never want to live in a world of chaos. Like us, Palestinians and Israelis only want a land where they can sleep peacefully, a home without an enemy. I hope one day they decide to give peace not only to their homeland, but also to the world. In that way, Palestinians and Israelis will accept each other.